Okay, so we know what's been going on in Michigan, right? So they passed the right to work state. So they brought on the governor, was on the television. He came on to talk about it. And let's just listen to, this is Governor Snyder. Governor Snyder, right? It's funny because the most famous Snyder that I can remember from my youth was Snyder from One Day at a Time.
Sure.
And he used to come by and fix stuff. And this guy comes by and breaks stuff. So here's what he had to say about it. Ready?
Right to work is about the relationship between the union and workers. And this is about being pro-workers, giving workers the choice. If anything, this...
Yes, it's about giving the workers the choice. Take it or leave it. That's
two choices.
That's the choice. Okay, he's got a little bit more to say.
Giving workers the choice. If anything, this should encourage unions to be more responsive to workers.
Oh, yeah. For example, they're going to be more responsive by waving goodbye to them. You know, I'd say it's the workers' fault anyway. They should have saved all the money they made in the 1930s. So here we are, and Governor. So
now workers will be able to accept gratuities while they're working.
Yeah, yes, they can get tips. So the crazy thing. So right to work, what it does is it makes people who work at if say like you work at a company. And the place wants to have a union. The way the labor laws work is that if 51% of the workers want to join a union, then it becomes what they call a closed shop, a union shop. Meaning if you want to work there, you don't necessarily have to join the union, but you do have to pay dues to the union. And most of the dues that you pay, in fact, go to the workings of the union, protecting workers, representing them when they're getting fired, bargaining for them collectively, stuff like that. Very small percentage of the money goes towards political. That's the whole thing. Why should I have to support a union, give my money to them, and they're going to take my money and give it to politicians that I don't agree with? So that's the whole big theory. But the theory is, so now the thing is, you don't have to pay into a union. And then you'll just, the union has to compete for the workers' dues. But the problem with that is that no one's going to pay for something they don't have to. And so that's pretty much effectively the end of the union when they do that. So here he goes on to talk even more about it.
It's about economic development. We will get more and better jobs coming to Michigan because we're going to be more competitive.
Yeah, Michigan's going to get all kinds of jobs, like they have in China, and for the same wages.
A lot of jobs.
Yeah, the new law is going to create more and better jobs in a growing field of Republican job elimination.
It'll be a boom town.
Jimmy,
yes,
Jimmy,
Frank.
Unions, you're leaving out the horrible effect. You know, what came out of unions, that awful thing that we all hate called the middle class.
Oh, God. And the 40-day work week. Shackle me to that some more, damn unions.
You know what nobody's mentioning here, Robert, is that the right to work law goes a long way towards protecting the rights of scabs.
Right. Well, here's what happens.
They need protection, too.
And this is what happened in the South is that they come in and the workers who join these non-union shops get benefits comparable to what the union gets.
Right.
Because the union creates competition and creates standards.
Right.
So these people who did not sacrifice for those benefits get to reap all the benefits while giving the finger to the people who did.
Yes, correct. So the thing is, it's not that. So he's trying to say that it's not that Republicans, hate workers. They're just nostalgic for the labor conditions during the Taft administration.
Who could blame them?
Who could blame them, really? And so the whole idea that the BS that Snyder says comes right from ALEC, right? So that ALEC, so they wrote this bill. ALEC wrote this bill. And so he fronts it by saying this is going to create more jobs. It's going to make the union more responsive. It's a great thing. It's a great thing.
Yeah, and that's why you had to pass it during a lame duck session.
Right. So so Karl Rove, by the way, went on Fox News.
Ironically, somebody who's not employed.
Last year he went on. And he kind of let the cat out of the bag on what right to work and getting rid of unions is all about. So he'll explain to you what it's all about.
They lost 612,000 union members in 2010 alone. Now, think about it. Every one of those 602,000 people had literally perhaps several $100s worth of union dues going into the political coffers of their union to spend on politics. So, yeah, you keep having a couple 100,000 people each year, for 500,000 people leave the labor union movement every year, and pretty soon you start having crimp in the political budgets of these unions. It has a direct effect on the presidential.
Okay, so he just said, so if you can lower the participation of workers in unions, lower the union number, you lower union dues, and you take money out of the political process, and that takes power and the voice away from working people and gives more power to the plutocrats who are now in control of things. Right. So that's what he's saying. That's what this is really all about. Okay.
And by the way, there's Republican strategists on his side who've said it even more explicitly, like, this is what we're trying to do. We are trying to take out one of the legs of the Democratic Party.
Right. So what these guys don't like is these free marketers, and I'm holding quotes up when I say that, these free marketers, they're for anything except the free market when it comes to democracy. Right. The more people who participate, the more people who get to express their opinion, the worse it is off for them. And they try to suppress the vote, and they try to suppress the union voice. They try to get rid of their union money in politics. So he's saying that the more and better jobs BS is just a political smokescreen. So that's all he's saying, and we know it now. Okay.
Well, and by the way, the biggest – it's not like the car makers are going to become non-union shops. They will stay union shops. The majority of people anybody who wants to work there still has to pay union dues. They pay slightly less. It's called financial core.
No, they don't. That's called – no, Robert, because right to work gets rid of all that. Right to work, they don't have to pay anything. That's the problem. So now but the UAW does have a contract for the next 3 years, and it will supersede this new law. So yes, You're correct about that. But after that 3 years, then it's over. So for the UAW. So I know that I think
how much more can they oppress the working class? How much more can they take away from the middle class? Haven't we sacrificed enough? And if we don't have those unions, like I hear people frequently, they really don't understand what a union has provided. Like we're talking about the 40-hour work week. We're talking about child labor, you know, that we don't have that any longer. And we're talking about that I can have somebody collectively bargain my contract for me instead of me going in and begging for some money. And we all know that it's hard to go and ask somebody for money.
Right.
And then say, I deserve a raise.
Well, it's impossible.
If you point, though, to one of their major points that they make is that because of unions, children have a much harder job finding jobs.
And nobody wants them.
Yeah, because of unions, kids have a much harder time finding jobs, but a much easier time finding the fire exits. But I could have got that out. Oh, it would have been a good joke. I don't have to. So I don't think I have to point it out to this audience that if there's a direct correlation to the dwindling number of union members in our workforce and with income and prosperity for the middle class. So even if you don't have a union job, if there's unions in your sector of the marketplace in America economy, your wages will be higher. Your benefits will be better because there is a union there. And we all know. Okay, so we're going to get to even more of that. But this
whole thing it gives. Because he talks about choice, and what he's talking about is giving working people the choice to not have dreams anymore.
Right. Yes. So,
and that whole phrase, I know, Jimmy, but the whole phrase "right to work," it just sounds perfect.
Yes, it's very Orwellian, right?
It is Orwellian.
Yes, right.
That's like Hitler called Volkswagen the
people's car.
The people's car, and over it said freedom through work or something like that. Freedom through labor.
That was the concept.
So in Lansing, Michigan, right? So as they were inside, the plutocrats were inside the Capitol passing anti-worker legislation that is guaranteed to lower their wages. On the outside, there were people protesting. A lot of unions. So Freedom Works decided to set up a tent right in the middle of it, and then guys like Stephen and the NRA. So there's guys like with NRA hats. So all of a sudden, right in the middle of all these union workers who are outside desperately protesting to try to save their way of life, there's these guys who are oppressing them, setting up a tent right in the middle of them and goading them, right? And like getting in their face. And Steven Crowder's one of these guys getting in their face while it's happening, while the plutocrats are inside screwing them. It's actually happening. Outside, this guy's taunting them. Hey, you're screwing, you know. And so what actually happened was some of the guys from Freedom Works tore down their own tent and blamed it on the union guys.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So did you know that, Frank?
I think I'd heard that, yeah.
Yes. So I was listening. Tom Hartman reported today that there was an unbiased observer who was a local worker who on his lunchtime walked over and he saw this guy from Freedom Works taking the straps off the tent and making it implode. And he said it didn't fall over like a tree would fall over. It fell straight down like the buildings in 9/11 fell down. So that's how it fell down, like somebody did it on purpose. And then they blamed it on the union guys. And then the Steven Crowder, this guy also said this guy was not, the way he described Steven Crowder's actions that day, he goes, I didn't know who this guy was, but it was obvious this guy was looking for a fight and he wasn't going to leave till he got one.
Right.
So and it's funny that when the video of that fight starts, everyone's like, well, what led up to it? All of a sudden you see this guy punch him, but you don't see what happened before. There's nothing. So, and you could tell something happened before, right? But they don't show you that part. So this Steven Crowder's a big coward. And he was like, and he tweets this video out and he says, this is the most shocking the most shocking thing you'll see all day. And I tweeted back to him, the most shocking thing I saw all day was your indifference to the assault on working families in Michigan.
Good point.
And,
Hear, hear.
Yes.
And, you know, it's always great. Great comedy always comes when comedians side with the powerful people against the underdog. That's kind of
that's hilarious.
Isn't that so? So what does Dennis Miller say, Frank, when people make that point to him, or does he live in a bubble where nobody gets to make that point to him? That the bully doesn't need comedy. Do you know what I mean? The bully again, I've said it before on the show. Conservatives don't do comedy. They're the reason we need comedy in the first place.
Exactly.